The rescue beacon pulsed red in the darkness as Ryan Torres watched 3 alien crew members huddle behind the emergency pod's failing shields. Outside, the storm raged with rain that burned through metal. Lightning cracked across purple skies, and the wind howled like a living thing that wanted them dead. Ryan pressed his hand against the viewport. Each raindrop that hit the hull left a small black mark. The atmosphere analyzer had stopped working an hour ago, but he had seen enough. Sulfuric acid in the rain. Chlorine gas in the air. Temperature that swung 40 degrees in minutes. This planet was trying to kill them. "We wait for rescue," Vexel clicked through his translator. The insectoid pilot's mandibles trembled as he spoke. His compound eyes caught the beacon's light and reflected it in 1,000 tiny dots. "Protocol says 3 days maximum. We stay here. We stay safe." Ryan looked at the life support panel. Red lights blinked everywhere. The pod had taken damage in the crash. The shields were failing. The air recycler was struggling. 3 days was impossible. "The pod won't last 3 days, Ryan said quietly. He pointed at the warning lights. "Look at the power levels. We have maybe 12 hours before the shields collapse completely. Then that rain gets in. Then we die." Torvak, the reptilian navigator, hissed softly. His scales had turned a pale gray, the color of fear for his species. But outside is death. The scans showed predatory plants. Toxic atmosphere. Unstable ground. "We cannot survive out there." "We cannot survive in here," Ryan said. He moved to the equipment locker and started pulling out supplies. A breather mask. Sample containers. A portable scanner. "I'm going outside to look around. We need shelter. Real shelter. Not this broken pod." Quilara's feathers ruffled in distress. The avian scientist's bright plumage had dulled since the crash. "This is madness. Humans may be Deathworlders, but even you cannot breathe that air. Even you cannot survive that rain." Ryan sealed the breather mask over his face and checked the fit. "I am not trying to survive the planet by being stronger than it. I am trying to survive by being smarter than it." He tapped his head. "My species learned to live in every environment on Earth. Deserts, tundra, jungles, mountains. We did not do it with tough skin or natural armor. We did it with this." Vexel's translator clicked rapidly. "But you have no tools. No equipment. No materials." "I have eyes," Ryan said. "I have hands. I have a brain that evolved to solve problems or die trying." He moved to the airlock. "I will be back in 1 hour. If I am not back in 90 minutes, assume I am dead and seal this pod tight. Save your power." The airlock hissed open. Ryan stepped into hell. The rain hit his suit immediately. He heard it sizzle and pop against the protective fabric. The breather mask filtered the worst of the toxic air, but he could still taste metal and sulfur. The wind tried to push him over. The ground beneath his boots was slick with some kind of oily residue. Ryan stood still for a full minute. He just watched, listened, felt the patterns. The rain came in waves, not constantly. 30 seconds of heavy downpour, then 20 seconds of lighter sprinkle. The wind gusts followed a rhythm too. Strong blast, weak period, strong blast again. The plants nearby moved when anything came close, but they were slow. They had reaction times. Weaknesses. He started walking, timing his movements to the rain patterns. When the heavy waves came, he took cover behind rocks. When the light periods came, he moved fast. He watched everything. The way water flowed showed him the elevation changes. The way plants grew showed him where the ground was stable. The way smoke rose from volcanic vents showed him wind direction. 50 meters from the pod, he found the first useful thing. A rocky outcrop with an overhang. Partial protection from rain. He marked it mentally and kept going. 100 meters out, he found the cave entrance. It was not large, maybe 3 meters wide and 2 meters tall. But when Ryan shined his portable light inside, he saw it opened into a bigger chamber. The walls were dark volcanic rock. Solid. That's the kind that resisted acid. He stepped inside carefully, watching for any movement. The cave went back about 15 meters and widened into a space big enough for all 4 of them. The floor was relatively flat. There was a crack in the rear wall where air flowed, a natural ventilation shaft. And best of all, he could hear water. Ryan followed the sound to a side passage. A stream ran through the cave system, fast and clear. He tested it carefully with his scanner. Highly acidic, but that meant it would kill bacteria too. With the right filtration, it could be drinkable. And the flow meant he could generate power. He spent another 20 minutes exploring and mapping everything in his head. The cave had good bones. The location was defensible. The materials around the area included dense stone, some kind of hardy vegetation and plenty of salvage from the crash site visible in the distance. Ryan checked his timer. 45 minutes had passed. Time to go back. The return trip was faster now that he knew the patterns. He timed the rain, dodged the slow-moving predatory plants, and made it back to the pod with 10 minutes to spare. The airlock hissed open. 3 alien faces stared at him in shock. "You survived," Kalara whispered. "I did better than survive," Ryan said, pulling off his breather mask. "I found us a home." He moved to the pod's computer and started sketching a map. "There is a cave system 100 meters northeast. Solid rock walls. Natural ventilation. Water source. Protection from weather. We can build a real shelter there." "Build?" Torvak's voice cracked. "With what materials? What tools?" Ryan smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a predator that had found prey. Except the prey was the planet itself, and Ryan had just figured out how to hunt it. "With everything around us," he said. "This planet is full of materials. We just need to know how to use them. That is what humans do. We take hostile environments and we make them home." He looked at each of them. "We have maybe 10 hours before this pod fails completely. I need your help. Vexel, you are strong. Torvak, you are precise. Kalara, you are smart. Together we can do this." Vexel's mandibles clicked slowly. "This is insane." "Yes," Ryan agreed. "But waiting here to die is more insane. So what do you say? Do we sit here and hope? Or do we build something and survive?" The 3 aliens looked at each other. Then, slowly Vexel stood up. His compound eyes fixed on Ryan. "Show us this cave," the pilot said. "Show us how a Deathworlder survives." Ryan nodded and started gathering supplies. Outside, the storm continued to rage. But inside the pod something had changed. They were not victims anymore. They were not waiting for rescue. They were going to fight back. Vexel's translator struggled to process the human's words. "I need that debris pile" should not sound confident when pointing at wreckage surrounded by creatures that dissolved metal with their touch. Ryan stood at the cave entrance, watching the crash site 200 meters away. Pieces of their ship lay scattered across the rocky ground. Hull plating, support beams, power conduits, everything they needed to build a real shelter. Everything surrounded by danger. "Those plants move when things get close," Kalara said nervously. Her feathers were still pale with stress. "They secrete acid strong enough to melt our hull. How can you possibly retrieve materials?" Ryan had been watching the plants for 20 minutes now. They were tall, almost 2 meters high, with broad leaves that glistened with moisture. When small animals ran past, the plants would bend and spray liquid. But Ryan noticed something important. "They are slow," he said. "Watch. When something moves nearby, they take 3 full seconds to react. And after they spray, they need 30 seconds before they can spray again. They are dangerous but predictable." He picked up a rock and threw it near one plant. The plant bent, sprayed, and then went still. "See? Now I have 30 seconds. Torvak's scales rippled with confusion. "You would risk your life on a pattern?" "On a guess." "Not a guess. Observation." Ryan started walking toward the debris field. "My ancestors hunted animals much faster and stronger than them. They survived by watching, learning, timing." He moved between the plants carefully, watching each one. When one started to bend toward him, he was already moving away. When another sprayed, he was counting in his head and timing his next step. The 3 aliens watched in stunned silence as Ryan reached the first debris pile, grabbed a sheet of hull plating and dragged it back. He made the return trip with the same careful timing. Not rushing. Not panicking. Just watching and moving with purpose. "Impossible," Vexel clicked. "You made it look easy." "It is easy once you understand the pattern," Ryan said. He set down the hull plating near the cave entrance. "But I cannot carry everything alone. I need help." He looked at Vexel. "You are much stronger than me. If I clear the path and call out timing, can you carry the heavier pieces?" Vexel's mandibles trembled. Then slowly he nodded. "I will try." For the next 2 hours they worked as a team. Ryan would scout ahead, throwing rocks to trigger the plants and mark safe windows. He would call out timing. "Move now. 3 steps forward. Stop. Wait. Okay, move left. Go now." Vexel followed his instructions exactly, and soon they had a pile of materials near the cave. Hull plates, metal beams, coils of wire, sheets of insulation. Kalara examined everything with her scanner. "This is good salvage. But how do you build with it? We have no welding tools. No fasteners. No assembly equipment." Ryan walked over to the volcanic rock formations near the cave. He picked up one stone about the size of his fist. That's heavy. He smashed it against another rock, and a chip broke off with a sharp edge. This is my first tool. He held it up. Humans have been making tools like this for 2 million years. It works. He took a piece of metal from the debris and began striking it with the sharp stone. Slowly, carefully, he shaped the metal into a crude wedge. Then he found a harder piece of volcanic rock and shaped it into a hammer. The work was slow. His hands grew tired. But after an hour he had basic tools. A hammer. A chisel. A cutting edge. This is primitive, Torvak said, but his voice held wonder instead of contempt. But it works. Primitive does not mean ineffective, Ryan replied. He moved to the cave entrance and began examining the floor. Now we build the foundation. We need a flat, stable base for the shelter. The cave floor is already good, but we can make it better. He used his tools to chip away uneven spots in the rock. He filled gaps with smaller stones, wedging them tight. Torvak watched for a few minutes, then picked up a stone and started helping. His reptilian hands were precise, and he had a good eye for level surfaces. Together, they smoothed out a 10-meter square area. We need walls, Ryan said. The cave mouth is too open. Wind and rain still get in. We build a barrier. He started arranging the larger pieces of volcanic rock, stacking them carefully. Each stone was chosen for shape and size. Each stone locked with the others. Kalara tilted her head. You are not using any binding agent. How will they stay together? Weight and friction, Ryan explained. He showed her how each stone's shape helped it grip the others. See how this one is wider at the bottom? It cannot tip. See how this one has a rough surface? It cannot slide. My ancestors built structures that lasted thousands of years with this method. Vexel approached with a massive boulder that would have been impossible for Ryan to lift. Where does this go? Ryan directed him to place it as a cornerstone. The foundation was taking shape. A solid wall of volcanic rock, chest high, blocking the cave entrance except for a gap they could use as a doorway. The wall would stop wind. It would stop rain. It would stop most of the planet's threats from walking right in. As the sun began to set, turning the purple sky even darker, they stood back and looked at their work. The foundation was complete. The wall was solid. They had transformed a simple cave into the beginning of a real shelter. I did not believe this was possible, Kalara said softly. When you said we would build, I thought you were in shock. Denial. But this. She touched the wall with one wing. This is real. Ryan was exhausted. His hands were cut and bruised. His muscles ached. But he smiled. This is just the beginning. Tomorrow we build the roof supports. Then waterproofing. Then ventilation. Then power. Each day we make it better. Each day we make it safer. Torvak looked at him with new respect. How do you know all this? Are you trained in construction? No, Ryan said. But humans have a tradition. We practice survival skills for recreation. For fun. We go into wilderness with minimal gear and build shelters. Make fire. Find food. We do it to remember where we came from. To stay sharp. He laughed tiredly. I never thought those weekend camping trips would save my life. Vexel made a sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Your species practices survival for entertainment. This explains so much about Deathworlders. They moved back into the cave behind the new wall. The difference was immediate. The wind no longer howled through. The temperature was more stable. The space felt protected. Safe. Ryan pulled out the emergency rations and divided them equally. As they ate, Kalara kept looking at the wall they had built. I have been in space for 10 years, she said. I have visited 50 worlds. I have degrees in xenobiology and planetary science. But today, I learned more about survival from watching you stack rocks than I learned in all my formal education. Ryan shook his head. You know many things I do not. You can navigate stars. You can analyze atmospheres. You can identify alien life. I just know how to build with my hands. Different knowledge. Both valuable. Perhaps, Kalara said. But right now on this planet your knowledge is keeping us alive. Outside the storm intensified. Thunder rolled across the landscape. Rain hammered down. Predatory plants rustled in the darkness. But inside the cave, behind their wall of stone, for beings from different worlds rested safely. Ryan lay down on the smooth rock floor they had prepared. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight they had shelter. They had protection. They had hope. And that was enough. The human was singing while weaving toxic plant fibers into rope, and Kalara could not decide what disturbed her more. That it worked or that Ryan seemed to be enjoying himself. Ryan sat near the cave entrance where the light was best, his hands moving in a steady rhythm. He had spent the morning harvesting fiber strands from the hardy plants that grew near the volcanic rocks. Plants that did not spray acid. Plants that bent in the wind but never broke. Now he was twisting those fibers together, over and under, creating something strong from something weak. "You are humming," Torvak observed. The reptilian had been watching Ryan work for an hour. "This is difficult labor. Why do you hum?" Ryan looked up and grinned. "My grandfather taught me to make rope when I was young. He always said that hard work goes faster with a song." He held up the rope he had made. It was already 3 meters long and growing. "Besides, this is not really hard. Hard was yesterday when we moved those big rocks. This is just repetitive. Repetitive work is good for thinking." Vexel approached with another bundle of plant fibers. His mandibles clicked with curiosity. "What are you thinking about?" "The roof," Ryan said. He pointed up at the cave ceiling. "We have good walls now. But we need a proper roof structure before the next big storm. The cave protects us from above, but the entrance area needs coverage. And we need internal structure. Platforms to sleep on. Shelves for storage. A frame to support everything." Kalara spread her wings in confusion. "But we have no lumber. No metal beams. How can you build a frame with rope and rocks?" Ryan stood and walked to the pile of salvaged materials. He pulled out several long metal beams from the ship's internal structure. "These will be our main supports. But I cannot weld them or bolt them together. So I will lash them." He demonstrated by wrapping rope around 2 beams in a complex pattern, pulling tight, then tying it off. When he was done, the joint was solid. He pulled on it hard. It did not budge. "This is called lashing," Ryan explained. "Humans have used this technique for thousands of years. No nails needed. No screws. Just rope and knowledge of how forces work." For the next several hours, Ryan worked on building a frame structure inside the cave. He placed vertical beams against the walls, spacing them evenly. Then he lashed horizontal beams across the top, creating a grid. The structure began to take shape. It was like a skeleton, Ryan explained. The bones that would support everything else. Torvak helped with measurements. His precise nature made him excellent at ensuring everything was level and square. Vexel used his strength to hold beams in place while Ryan lashed them together. Even Kalara contributed, using her sharp vision to spot any weak points in the structure. By midday they had a solid frame running along both walls of the cave and across the entrance area. Ryan stepped back and examined his work with satisfaction. "Now we add the platforms," he said. He lashed shorter beams across the frame at waist height, creating flat surfaces. "These are our beds. Off the ground. Away from any crawling creatures. Away from cold and moisture." He tested one platform by climbing onto it. It held his weight easily. "See? Solid." Kalara hopped onto another platform and ruffled her feathers with pleasure. "This is much better than sleeping on stone. And the elevation makes me feel safer." "That is the point," Ryan said. "Humans are not the strongest creatures. We are not the fastest. But we learn to think in 3 dimensions. Predators on the ground? We climb. We build high. We create advantages." He moved to the entrance area where rain was starting to fall again. Now for the roof. He had salvaged large pieces of hull plating from the crash. These he placed across the frame at an angle, overlapping them like scales on a fish. Rain hit the metal and ran off to the sides instead of dripping through. But there were still gaps where water could enter. "I need more materials," Ryan muttered. He looked outside at the plants. The same hardy plants he had used for rope also had large waxy leaves. He ventured out, timing his movements to avoid the predatory species, and cut several armfuls of the leaves. Back inside, he showed the aliens how to layer the leaves over the metal plating. The waxy surface repelled water. Multiple layers created insulation. Soon they had a roof that was completely waterproof and actually helped keep the temperature stable inside. "Ingenious," Kalara whispered. She ran her scanner over the roof structure. "The leaves are creating an air gap between layers. This provides thermal insulation. And the wax coating has natural antimicrobial properties. This is better than some manufactured materials." Ryan shrugged. "Nature has been solving these problems for millions of years. Sometimes we just need to copy what already works." He moved to the back of the cave where the stream flowed. Now for water collection. He positioned hull plates at an angle to catch water from the cave ceiling where condensation formed. The plates funneled water into salvaged containers. Then he created a simple filtration system using layers of sand, charcoal from burned wood, and cloth from torn uniforms. Water poured through the layers and came out clear. The acid level is still high, Kalara noted, checking with her scanner, but much reduced. And the bacteria count is nearly zero. We can drink it? Torvak asked hopefully. They had been rationing their emergency supplies carefully. With our breather masks providing extra filtration, yes, Ryan confirmed. He took a careful sip himself first, then smiled. Tastes terrible, but it will keep us alive. Next, Ryan addressed ventilation. He had noticed that air flowed naturally through the cave system, but he wanted to improve it. Using metal sheets, he created baffles near the natural crack in the rear wall. These directed the airflow, pulling fresh air in from outside and venting stale air out. The temperature difference between the hot exterior and cool cave interior created natural circulation. No fans needed, he explained. No power required. Just understanding how hot air rises and cold air sinks. The planet's own temperature does the work for us. As evening approached, they stood together and looked at what they had built. In just 3 days, they had transformed a bare cave into a functional shelter. They had walls. They had a roof. They had elevated sleeping platforms. They had water collection and filtration. They had ventilation. Vexel walked around the space, touching different parts of the structure with wonder. This is more sophisticated than our emergency pod. And you built it with primitive techniques. Not primitive, Ryan corrected gently. Simple. There is a difference. Primitive means inferior. Simple means elegant. Doing more with less. That is human engineering at its best. Kalara was recording everything with her scanner. I must document this. My people will not believe it. We have technology to synthesize shelters. We have materials that assemble themselves. But we have forgotten how to build with our own hands. If our technology fails, we are helpless. That is the difference, Ryan said quietly. Humans went to space, but we never forgot where we came from. We never forgot how to survive without technology. We kept those skills alive. He smiled at them. Not because we are better. Just because we are newer to the galaxy. We remember being scared and vulnerable. We remember learning to survive. Torvak settled onto his sleeping platform with a content hiss. I am beginning to understand why humans are classified as Deathworlders. It is not about being tough. It is about being adaptable. Taking any situation and finding a way through. Rain drummed on the roof above them, but not a drop came through. Wind howled outside, but inside the air was still and comfortable. The storm raged, but they were safe. Ryan lay on his own platform and closed his eyes. Tomorrow he would work on perimeter defenses. Maybe improve the water system. Maybe create tool storage. There was always more to do. But tonight they had achieved something important. They had turned a hostile cave into a home. When the shelter's improvised power system started humming to life, powered by nothing but flowing water and scavenged parts, Vexel's translator could barely process what he was witnessing. The rescue coordinator's latest message became clear in that moment. They were not coming for a crashed crew anymore. They were coming to study a human engineer. Ryan stood knee-deep in the acidic stream that ran through the back of the cave, wearing boots he had fashioned from thick rubber insulation. His hands moved carefully as he positioned a turbine made from salvaged fan blades and ship components. The water was dangerous, but he had learned its patterns. He knew exactly how to work with it. The current is strong here, he called back to the others. Steady flow. Never stops. That means reliable power generation. He secured the turbine housing to rocks he had positioned days earlier. The acidic water began spinning the blades immediately. See? The planet wants to kill us with this water. But we are going to make it work for us instead. Kalara watched from a safe distance, her scanner recording everything. The acid will corrode the metal within days. This cannot possibly work long-term. Ryan smiled and pointed to the coating he had applied to all the metal surfaces. Volcanic glass, ground into powder and mixed with plant resin. Creates a protective barrier. I tested it yesterday. The acid cannot penetrate it. He connected wiring from the turbine to a junction box. Will it last forever? No. But it will last long enough. And when it wears down, we replace it. That is how maintenance works. The turbine spun faster as Ryan adjusted the water flow using a simple gate system. The generator he had salvaged from the ship's backup systems began producing electricity. A small light panel flickered, then glowed steady green. Power, Torvak breathed. Actual power. From a stream. Hydroelectric generation, Ryan said, climbing carefully out of the water. Humans have used this for over 100 years. One of our oldest renewable energy methods. Simple physics. Flowing water turns turbine. Turbine spins generator. Generator makes electricity. He dried his hands and moved to the next project. But we need storage. The stream will always flow, but we need power available instantly when we need it. He had spent the morning preparing a battery storage system. Using the ship's damaged power cells, he had carefully extracted the functional components. Some were completely destroyed, but others were still viable. Now he arranged them in a series configuration, connecting them with salvaged wire. This is dangerous work, Vexel observed. His mandibles clicked nervously. Those cells can explode if connected incorrectly. Yes, Ryan agreed. So I am being very careful. He showed them each connection before making it, explaining the positive and negative terminals, the importance of matching voltage, the need for proper insulation. My father was an electrician. He taught me to respect electricity. It can help you or kill you depending on how you treat it. Kalara moved closer, fascinated despite her fear. You learned this from your parent? Not from formal education? Both, Ryan said. I studied engineering at university. But my father taught me the practical side. How things actually work in the real world when they are dirty and broken and nothing goes according to the manual. He completed the last connection and checked the voltage with a salvaged meter. Perfect. Now we have battery storage. The stream charges the batteries. The batteries provide power when we need it. He spent the next hour wiring the shelter. Simple circuits running along the walls. Light fixtures at key locations. A charging station for their emergency equipment. Even a small heating element for warmth during cold nights. Nothing fancy but everything functional. Torvak watched with growing amazement. This is a complete power grid. In a cave. Built from wreckage. It is not pretty, Ryan admitted. But pretty does not matter. Working matters. He flipped a switch and lights illuminated the shelter. After days of living in darkness, broken only by emergency lights, the steady glow was beautiful. Now we can see. Now we can charge equipment. Now we have some comfort. But Ryan was not finished. He moved to the entrance and began setting up a perimeter warning system. Using thin wire, he created a network of trip lines around the shelter. Each wire connected to small bells and noise makers he had fashioned from metal scraps. Anything that moved through the perimeter would trigger sound. This alerts us to danger, he explained. We cannot watch all directions all the time. But this system watches for us. He demonstrated by tugging one wire. A cascade of chimes and rattles echoed through the shelter. Simple. Effective. No power required. Vexel tested another trip line carefully. The predatory plants will trigger this. Yes, Ryan said. That is the point. We know when something approaches. Gives us time to prepare or hide or fight if needed. He added visual markers to the system as well, small flags that would move when the wires were disturbed. Multiple redundancy. Sound and sight. Never rely on just one warning method. Over the next 2 days, Ryan taught each alien how to maintain every system. He showed Kalara how to check the power generation and replace worn components. He taught Torvak how to repair the water filtration when filters clogged. He instructed Vexel on reinforcing the structure when stress points developed. Why are you teaching us this? Kalara asked. You built everything. You understand it best. Ryan looked at her seriously. What if I get injured? What if I get sick? If I am the only one who knows how these systems work, then we all die if something happens to me. Everyone must know. Everyone must be able to maintain what we built. He smiled. Besides, these are your systems now too. This is your shelter. You should know how your home works. When the shelter's improvised power system started humming to life, powered by nothing but flowing water and scavenged parts, Vexel's translator could barely process what he was witnessing. The rescue coordinator's latest message became clear in that moment. They were not coming for a crashed crew anymore. They were coming to study a human engineer. Ryan stood knee-deep in the acidic stream that ran through the back of the cave, wearing boots he had fashioned from thick rubber insulation. His hands moved carefully as he positioned a turbine made from salvaged fan blades and ship components. The water was dangerous, but he had learned its patterns. He knew exactly how to work with it. The current is strong here, he called back to the others. Steady flow. Never stops. That means reliable power generation. He secured the turbine housing to rocks he had positioned days earlier. The acidic water began spinning the blades immediately. See? The planet wants to kill us with this water. But we are going to make it work for us instead. Kalara watched from a safe distance, her scanner recording everything. The acid will corrode the metal within days. This cannot possibly work long-term. Ryan smiled and pointed to the coating he had applied to all the metal surfaces. Volcanic glass, ground into powder and mixed with plant resin, creates a protective barrier. I tested it yesterday. The acid cannot penetrate it. He connected wiring from the turbine to a junction box. Will it last forever? No. But it will last long enough. And when it wears down, we replace it. That is how maintenance works. The turbine spun faster as Ryan adjusted the water flow using a simple gate system. The generator he had salvaged from the ship's backup systems began producing electricity. A small light panel flickered, then glowed steady green. Power, Torvak breathed. Actual power. From a stream. Hydroelectric generation, Ryan said, climbing carefully out of the water. Humans have used this for over 100 years. One of our oldest renewable energy methods. Simple physics. Flowing water turns turbine. Turbine spins generator. Generator makes electricity. He dried his hands and moved to the next project. But we need storage. The stream will always flow, but we need power available instantly when we need it. He had spent the morning preparing a battery storage system. Using the ship's damaged power cells, he had carefully extracted the functional components. Some were completely destroyed but others were still viable. Now he arranged them in a series configuration, connecting them with salvaged wire. This is dangerous work, Vexel observed. His mandibles clicked nervously. Those cells can explode if connected incorrectly. Yes, Ryan agreed. So I am being very careful. He showed them each connection before making it, explaining the positive and negative terminals, the importance of matching voltage, the need for proper insulation. My father was an electrician. He taught me to respect electricity. It can help you or kill you depending on how you treat it. Kalara moved closer, fascinated despite her fear. You learned this from your parent? Not from formal education? Both, Ryan said. I studied engineering at university. But my father taught me the practical side. How things actually work in the real world when they are dirty and broken and nothing goes according to the manual. He completed the last connection and checked the voltage with a salvaged meter. Perfect. Now we have battery storage. The stream charges the batteries. The batteries provide power when we need it. He spent the next hour wiring the shelter. Simple circuits running along the walls. Light fixtures at key locations. A charging station for their emergency equipment. Even a small heating element for warmth during cold nights. Nothing fancy but everything functional. Torvak watched with growing amazement. This is a complete power grid. In a cave. Built from wreckage. It is not pretty, Ryan admitted. But pretty does not matter. Working matters. He flipped a switch and lights illuminated the shelter. After days of living in darkness, broken only by emergency lights, the steady glow was beautiful. Now we can see. Now we can charge equipment. Now we have some comfort. But Ryan was not finished. He moved to the entrance and began setting up a perimeter warning system. Using thin wire, he created a network of trip lines around the shelter. Each wire connected to small bells and noise makers he had fashioned from metal scraps. Anything that moved through the perimeter would trigger sound. This alerts us to danger, he explained. We cannot watch all directions all the time. But this system watches for us. He demonstrated by tugging one wire. A cascade of chimes and rattles echoed through the shelter. Simple. Effective. No power required. Vexel tested another trip line carefully. The predatory plants will trigger this. Yes, Ryan said. That is the point. We know when something approaches. Gives us time to prepare or hide or fight if needed. He added visual markers to the system as well, small flags that would move when the wires were disturbed. Multiple redundancy. Sound and sight. Never rely on just one warning method. Over the next 2 days, Ryan taught each alien how to maintain every system. He showed Kalara how to check the power generation and replace worn components. He taught Torvak how to repair the water filtration when filters clogged. He instructed Vexel on reinforcing the structure when stress points developed. Why are you teaching us this? Kalara asked. You built everything. You understand it best. Ryan looked at her seriously. What if I get injured? What if I get sick? If I am the only one who knows how these systems work, then we all die if something happens to me. Everyone must know. Everyone must be able to maintain what we built. He smiled. Besides, these are your systems now too. This is your shelter. You should know how your home works. The message from the rescue coordinator came on the 5th day. Vexel read it aloud, his translator clicking with disappointment. Another delay. Storm systems blocking safe approach. 5 more days minimum before they can reach us. Ryan expected panic. Expected despair. Instead, Torvak just shrugged his scaled shoulders. We have food. We have water. We have power and shelter. 5 days is no problem. Kalara nodded agreement. I'm actually enjoying this. Learning these skills. Understanding how to build instead of just using what others build for me. She looked around the shelter with pride. We made this. With our own hands. Our own effort. Vexel walked over to their original emergency pod, which sat dark and dead outside the shelter entrance. He compared it mentally to what they had now. The pod had been sophisticated technology. Climate-controlled. Automated systems. But it had failed. Meanwhile, their hand-built shelter with its simple systems worked perfectly. More than that, it thrived. I have been a pilot for 15 years, Vexel said quietly. I have flown the most advanced ships in the fleet. I have relied on technology for everything. But if my ship crashed on a remote world and I was alone? He trailed off, the implication clear. He would have died waiting for rescue, not knowing how to save himself. Ryan stirred the small fire he maintained for cooking and backup heat. Technology is wonderful. It lets us cross space. It lets us talk to each other across species. But it should not make us helpless. We should know how to survive even when technology fails. That evening they sat together in their shelter. Lights glowed softly overhead. The power system hummed quietly in the background. The water filtration dripped steadily. The perimeter alarms stood ready. Every system worked in harmony. Torvak looked at the ceiling, where Ryan had installed panels that showed sky condition through clever mirror arrangements. You know what is strange? I am not eager for rescue anymore. I know we will be saved. But I am not counting the hours like I was before. Because you are not helpless anymore, Ryan said. You are not just surviving. You are living. There is a difference. He poked the fire with a stick. My grandfather used to say that comfort is not about having everything. It is about knowing you can handle anything. Kalara spread her wings and settled into her elevated sleeping platform. When we return to civilization, I am going to recommend survival training for all deep space explorers. Real training. Building with hands. Understanding basic engineering. Not just emergency procedures but actual skills. Good, Ryan said. Because the galaxy is big and dangerous. Technology helps, but sometimes technology fails. When that happens, you need knowledge. You need adaptability. You need to remember that intelligence is not just about complex calculations. It is also about solving problems with whatever you have available. Outside, the planet's storms continued. Predators moved through the darkness. The hostile environment pressed against their shelter from all sides. But inside, for beings from different worlds rested comfortably. They had power. They had water. They had safety. They had learned to survive. The rescue team's senior officer stood at the shelter entrance, scanning the impossible structure with equipment designed to rate survival probability. The device kept returning error. It could not classify a 100% survival rate on a world where nothing should live longer than 6 hours. Commander Zefix was a Krethik, a crystalline species known for precise thinking and rigid adherence to protocol. He had led rescue operations for 20 years. He had seen survivors barely clinging to life. He had seen emergency pods pushed to their absolute limits. He had seen crews lucky to have half their members alive. But he had never seen this. Explain, Zefix said, his voice resonating through his crystalline structure. Your emergency pod shows complete system failure after 18 hours. Yet you have been here for 10 days. All 4 crew members are alive. Healthy. How? Ryan stepped forward, wiping his hands on a cloth. He had been working on expanding the water filtration system when the rescue ships arrived. We built shelter. Created power. Established sustainable systems. We survived by adapting. Zefix's internal structure flickered with confusion. Built? With what resources? This planet is classified as extreme hazard. Nothing technological should function here for more than... He stopped, looking around the shelter again. The volcanic stone walls. The interlocked metal frame. The hydroelectric system humming in the background. The organized storage areas. This is not technology. This is... construction. Yes, Ryan said simply. We built it. With our hands and basic tools. Using materials from the environment and crash salvage. The rescue team's medical officer, a being named Urith with 6 limbs and empathic abilities, scanned each survivor. No injuries. No malnutrition. No psychological trauma. This is impossible on a death world. They should be dying. They should be desperate. She looked at Kalara. What happened here? Kalara's feathers had regained their bright color. She stood tall, confident. We learned. The humans showed us how to survive. Not with advanced technology but with practical skills. Building. Planning. Working with the environment instead of against it. Zephyx walked through the shelter, examining everything. His analytical mind cataloged each detail. The elevated sleeping platforms. The water collection and filtration system. The perimeter warning network. The power generation from the stream. Every system was simple but effective. Every solution was elegant in its directness. I have seen emergency survival equipment, Zephyx said slowly. Expensive, complex, requiring technical expertise. This. He touched the volcanic stone wall. This is better. This uses nothing but local materials and knowledge. Vexel approached, his mandibles clicking with pride. 2 years ago, a crew crashed on Theta 7. Less hostile planet than this. They followed protocol. They waited in their pod for rescue. By the time help arrived, they were all dead. Environment killed them while they waited. His compound eyes fixed on Zephyx. We did not wait. We acted. The human taught us to act. Torvak led the commander to the power system. Hydroelectric generation. Battery storage. Complete electrical grid. Built from wreckage and natural materials. It has run continuously for 8 days without failure. His scales showed colors of satisfaction. Our emergency pod's power lasted less than 1 day. Zephyx examined the turbine system, the protected wiring, the battery configuration. His device kept flashing error messages. This was not supposed to be possible. Emergency survival on extreme hazard worlds was measured in hours. This crew had built something that could sustain them indefinitely. Who designed these systems? Zephyx asked. Ryan did, Kalara said. But he taught us to maintain them. To repair them. To improve them. All of us understand how everything works now. Zephyx turned to Ryan. You have formal training in survival engineering? Ryan shook his head. I am a ship engineer. But my species maintains practical survival skills. We practice building shelters. Creating fire. Finding water. We do it for recreation. For tradition. To remember our origins. He gestured around the shelter. I just applied what humans have known for thousands of years. The rescue team's navigator, studying his datapad, looked up with shock. Commander, the logs show the shelter survived 3 major storm systems. 2 predator incursions. 1 seismic event measuring 4.6. The emergency pod would have been destroyed. But this structure held. Because it is flexible, Ryan explained. Because it works with the environment, not against it. The frame can move slightly during earthquakes without breaking. The roof design channels wind around it instead of catching wind. The walls are thick enough to withstand impacts. He smiled. Ancient humans built structures that lasted thousands of years using these same principles. I just adapted them for this planet. Zephyx was silent for a long moment. His crystalline structure pulsed with different colors as he processed information. Finally he spoke. I need to see your emergency protocols. Standard procedures say to remain in the pod. Wait for rescue. Preserve resources. You violated every protocol. Yet you survived where protocol would have killed you. Protocol assumes rescue will arrive in time, Vexel said. But sometimes rescue cannot arrive in time. Sometimes the environment kills you before help can come. Ryan understood this. He made us understand this. Urith, the medical officer, approached Ryan carefully. I need to understand. Your species is classified as Deathworlders. You come from a harsh planet. But this level of practical skill, how common is this among humans? Ryan considered the question. Most humans know basic survival skills. Maybe not to this level but the fundamentals. We teach children how to build fires. How to find water. How to create shelter. It is part of our culture. Part of remembering where we came from. He paused. We are a young species in the galaxy. We have not forgotten how to survive without technology yet. Zephyx's colors shifted to a pattern that indicated decision-making. I am recommending an immediate change to emergency protocols. This shelter demonstrates that active survival response exceeds passive waiting in extreme environments. He looked at Ryan directly. I am also formally requesting that you accept a position with the Galactic Exploration Fleet. We need someone to develop and teach practical survival skills to all species. Ryan blinked in surprise. You want me to teach aliens how to survive? Not just survive, Zephyx corrected. Thrive. What you built here is not minimal survival. This is sustainable living. This is adaptation. This is exactly what deep space explorers need. His colors pulsed with determination. We have become too dependent on technology. When technology fails, we die. You have shown there is another way. Kalara stepped forward. I volunteer to assist. I have documented everything Ryan taught us. I understand the value of these skills now. Torvak nodded. I will help as well. Learning these techniques changed how I think about problems. Other species need this knowledge. Vexel clicked agreement. The galaxy is dangerous. Technology is wonderful but not reliable in all situations. Practical skills are reliable everywhere. Zephyx looked at the 4 survivors, then back at the shelter they had built. This location will be designated as a permanent training facility. Survey teams. Exploration crews. Anyone who might face emergency situations will train here. They will learn to build, to adapt, to survive without depending entirely on technology. Ryan walked to the entrance and looked out at the hostile planet. The planet that had tried to kill them. The planet they had learned to live on. My grandfather always said that the difference between surviving and thriving is knowledge. Not just information but practical, hands-on knowledge. The kind you get from doing, not just reading. Zephyx approached and stood beside him. Your grandfather was wise. The galaxy has countless species with vast scientific knowledge. But we have forgotten practical wisdom. We have forgotten how to use our hands, our minds, our adaptability. He gestured to the shelter. This structure is a reminder. Intelligence is not just about complex calculations. It is also about simple solutions to immediate problems. The rescue team began documenting everything, measuring the structure, recording the systems, taking samples. They worked with careful respect, understanding they were witnessing something significant. A shift in how survival would be approached across the galaxy. As evening approached, Ryan stood with his 3 companions and watched the sunset. The purple sky turned orange and red. The hostile world was beautiful in its own deadly way. Do you know what I find most interesting? Kalara said softly. We came from different worlds, different evolutionary paths, different ways of thinking. But we learned to work together, to combine our strengths. Vexel's power, Torvak's precision, my observation skills, Ryan's practical knowledge. Together, we were stronger than any of us alone. That is the real lesson, Ryan agreed. Survival is not about being the strongest or the smartest. It is about being adaptable, working together, finding solutions with whatever you have available. He smiled. And never giving up even when the situation seems impossible. Zephyx joined them, his crystalline form catching the sunset light. You have changed how the galaxy will approach emergency survival. Future generations will train here, learn here. Remember what you accomplished. He paused. This shelter represents more than just survival. It represents the value of practical knowledge, the importance of remembering our origins, the power of adaptability. Ryan looked at the shelter one last time before they would leave for the rescue ship. The walls they had built, the systems they had created, the home they had made from nothing. It would stand here now, a testament to what was possible when beings refused to give up. When they used their minds and hands and determination to overcome impossible odds. We did not just survive, Ryan said quietly. We proved something. That intelligence comes in many forms. That technology is a tool, not a replacement for skill. That any environment can be lived in if you are willing to learn and adapt. The galaxy would remember this shelter, this lesson, this proof that practical knowledge still mattered in an age of advanced technology. And beings from every species would come here to learn what 4 survivors had discovered on a deadly world. That the will to survive, combined with knowledge and adaptability, could overcome anything.